good heart. But if this kind of balance and this equal exchange falters, entire networks and their members can begin to fail and become mate or sick, unhealthy and dysfunctional, harmed, hurt. Some of that process that happened in the colonial experience for Māori. Instead of, as some people think, being some sort of steady state, traditional society frozen in aspic, early Māori life was very dynamic and rapidly changing. And in the years before European arrival, Māori invented a new language, new cosmological ideas, art forms, fashioned new kinds of watercraft, buildings, mastered new fibre, stone and agriculture. A bit of wine, a spice of wit, a house with lawns enclosing it, a living river by the door, a nightingale in sycamore, as we might say in New Zealand, a tui in the kōwhai tree, a jug of wine, and thee. Or as you might say in Māori, and I hope Wellington cooperates, kia horai ke marino, kia papaponamutia te moana, kia tere ai te kā rohi rohi. May calm be widespread, the sea like greenstone, and may the shimmer of summer dance across your pathways. Kia ora.
I've had little choice in the matter. I was born into Ripon, so talking about it has always come pretty naturally to me. Those of you that know me, talking comes pretty naturally to me. It was really tricky. The brief I was being given has opened me up to consider pretty much all of what I know and love. So a greater sense of responsibility to do justice to all that has fallen upon me. Detailing to a few hundred of my peers how we are connected to our land further binds us to our task. That is to hold on to a beautiful farm and to perpetuate certain pastoral values over successive generations of our family. To be honest though, I spend an unhealthy amount of time terrified of not being able to hold on to the farm and what that might mean to our family's sense of self-esteem and self-definition. Talking about it here with you in front of you all raises those stakes yet again. But I've asked myself to be here in the present and not limited by fear of the future. I may talk about my place, but of course it doesn't belong to me. I'm the second youngest of 6 siblings. I work with my mother, my 2 sisters, my brother, my wife Jo, about 4 full-time staff. Some of them have been with us for over a decade. We've been granted a moment of custodianship over a very special piece of land. We care for it collectively, but over time, each of us has developed our own unique relationship with it. For me, I believe that landform, its geology, geography, informs human culture as much as it does agriculture. Hang about long enough in one place and you become subject to the rhythms of that place. So I've been asked to speak about our place, how it was shaped, and how it has shaped us. I'm going to do that following my mihi, my introduction. But there's a clear invitation for you all over the next 3 days and now to consider your place and how that place is shaped.
Look at my teeth.
Oh, where's the video now?
Video now. Good time. Video on that. Yeah.
Sorry, no, don't do that.
There we are.
Opportunities. The principles of quality are adhered to, and sight, together with climate, have a good voice that is actually louder than just the grape variety. True craftsmanship of wine growing, detail at every level, not following the fashionable trends like a flag in the wind. These are the key attributes to me.
The shortcoming or goodness we perceive as we swallow. That we look to notions of typicity, a curiosity that asks us whether a wine is true to its type. The concept that there are textbook characteristics of wines made from major grape varieties that give sustenance to our personal experiences with wines. This is part of the classic interpretive base for wine quality, a dummy's guide to quality, so to speak. It's a paradigm from which we give credence to our leading culture in quality assessment, the judgment of wine. Wine judging, not in the classic white lab coat sense, but inclusive of that, typically involves several coinciding factors that work towards notions of quality.
What makes it so special? What did I include this image? For me, it symbolically captures the key elements of high-quality Pinot Noir. The transparent and still pond water reflect the scene above. Please keep this image in your mind as we progress.
And geographical because in my role I have to look at the whole world of wine. And I inevitably, of course, have a European bent because I'm based in London. I think that if we were all here, and by the way, congratulations on how well behaved an audience you are. You must be completely besotted by Pinot not to talk among yourselves. Thank you very much indeed. If this were taking place in the last century, I think we would have mentioned the B word far more times than has been mentioned so far, and probably at least 3 of the wines, if not more, that we've tasted so far would have been red Burgundies. And I think, from my perspective, it's quite surprising that we haven't looked at any Burgundies yet.
A bottle of Sauterne mimics the world, concentrates the given, delivers it suddenly, coloured, luminous, radiant, tactile, velvety, profound, caressing, suave, orchestral, a composition of brass and woodwind, spiritual, body and world, agrarian, floreal, prairial, vendémiaire, wooded, time, minutes and months, decades, spaces, countryside and peacock's tail, gifts or the given invade the sensorium, leaving tongues behind, travel down arteries and muscles, nerves and bones, all the way to the fingernails. A bottle contains the entirety of the sensible, says Serre, who uses wine to illustrate the elements that both mingle within it and as a metaphor in this particular chapter for the way our senses are entwined. And this is what I want to give you a snapshot of in this presentation, here at this multisensory symposium, where our tongues are involved not only in talking, but tasting, where we combine intellect, taste, smell, touch, vision, and in this segment, audition, which is perhaps the sensory modality that's not the most obviously connected with wine, but as I hope to demonstrate, can have a powerful effect.
in part because of those temperatures and the elevation, whereas one of our 2016 vineyard fermenters was very short, with just 2 days due to the warmer vintage weather. These changes are driven by the season, just as the other aspects leading up to harvest are.
I went through Roseworthy College and was trained as a very technical winemaker. I went to France after that and cured it. To quote Lynn Evans, Roseworthy graduates are very well qualified to judge the bottom half of any wine show in Australia. But I think the scientific background is very important, but there's other things in winemaking, and certainly France taught me a lot of that. Centering neutrality at the end there, that's an interesting one, because my experience with pure culture yeast is that you get anything but sensory neutrality. You get much more of a fingerprint from the yeast. And one of the things with wild fermentations, because there is a mixed culture, is that you get much more neutrality, because the yeast character fades into the background, and other more important things like grape variety and the vineyard site come to the fore.
Absolutely thrilled when Julia Harding, Master of Wine, joined the team, and I was able to pass on responsibility for all the Bitty and Vinny entries in the Oxford Companion to Wine to her. So she is much, much more up to date than I am, and she was here a year ago. I think a lot of you know her and know how absolutely excellent she is, and she's basically responsible for this talk. And I will, and because she keeps up to date with all the latest research with the view to the next edition of the Oxford Companion. And we, note the royal we, will be publishing on jancesrobinson.com a summary of this talk with all the scientific references, because we will be, I will be crediting a lot of research, but there's no place on the slides for all the details of all the papers, but they will be free on jancesrobinson.com, probably on Monday, but no guarantees.
8,000-year history. For example, to understand wine, you need to learn the history of civilization, the rise and fall of empires, and the battle for culture and beliefs in between. And not just a history, but the great march of ideas. Over the 8 millennia that wine has been around, we've projected our many and varied ideas about the world onto wine. What we understand, fear and revere. Wine has been everything, a marker of social class, an elixir for debauchery, a symbol of the blood of Christ. We can also explore the Earth's physical systems through wine. How the onset of bloodburst starts not in the vineyard but out in space, when one side of the Earth moves closer to the sun, warming the soil to awaken the vines and let bloodburst begin. The world of wine also has a complete cast of players to help one understand character and motivation. In our great global village of wine, we have our judges and teachers, writers and scientists, farmers and marketers, snobs and villains. What about what happens when wine communes with our senses? It too is a thing of wonder, that a certain combination of molecules suspended in liquid, when swirled and twirled and mixed with air, can taste so pleasant, and of both an epoch long since past and the season not long finished, is a thing to be revealed.
This mass proliferation of information that we all struggle to interpret, we recognize that we're looking for communication, connection, and intimacy. And we seek to act in excellence, to cultivate that in very small ways in every little moment that we do. And share that openly, right? We can't expect the benefits of the old top-down model. Reverence doesn't come in the same way it used to for those of us that give ourselves to lifelong projects. Many people get attention very quickly, right? But connection and intimacy is greater than that. And the satisfaction instead comes from knowing that in committing to that excellence and acting from service, our effect can reverberate out in ways we cannot even predict. With that in mind, I really want to thank David Strada for...
What I and the rest of us experienced was exactly what Pinot 2017 wanted to strive for, particularly after our really successful 2013 event. And we just needed to go further and show actually who we really are, come out of our shells, true underbelly, Cancerian. Essentially the importance of to be able to tell a story and talk about our wine from our heart. Marcel stated this quite simply yesterday: if I do not like my wine, how am I going to have the drive or intent to convince you to like it? Rachel Talele alluded to this with a reference to her own people's struggles, and Elaine did too just then. When you're unsure of who's gone before you and where you are from, you become disconnected and can struggle to look ahead and see your defined path. Touring a Waiwai essentially embraces this in everything we do. It is the starting point, it's the initial road marker to become connected and feel a part of a collective or a community or a whānau. By embracing and understanding your sense of place, you're so much more prepared to go over the world with humble confidence, show your passion, show yourself, and with us, show your Pinot Noir.